mindset hack. And for today, it's about empathy, and not so much gaining empathy. It's actually when your issue is to be in an empathy trap. You have too much empathy. Empathy is a part of emotional intelligence, and it's part of a realm that is about the interpersonal. And so that's an element out of that. Well, what is empathy? Well, empathy is about the ability to notice and to identify with the feelings of other people. There's affective empathy, which is your ability to notice emotions in other people and then sort of being able to feel the same, mirror that back towards someone. Okay? So it's one. And then we have cognitive empathy or perspective empathy. And that is a definition that is about the ability to step into somebody else's shoes and have their perspective. Okay? So in NLP, that would be the second perceptual position, but we're going to leave that for later. Now, this was coming up in a webinar yesterday with my current online and live students. It's about, well, what about the empathy trap? And that related more to the inability to set boundaries. And the empathy trap is that you're so empathic that you end up giving too much away of yourself, let's say. Well, first of all, a lot of people say I'm an empath or I'm highly empathic. The thing is that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a rock star at empathy. I think that's what these people are trying to tell me. I think it's slippery slope, but because it's a self-assessment. And the scientist in me, I go, really? But the thing is, just because, well, if you're able to notice the emotions of others, you're not necessarily great at interpreting them. That would be one. You don't necessarily know why they're having this emotion or what the emotion really is. And second piece to that is you're not necessarily dealing with it in a healthy way. So it's not necessarily a great thing. So when do you know that you're in an empathy trap, right? When it's not good for you. Well, I have a little list here, and I got that from the Science Center that is about positive psychology. And there's a few questions that I thought was kind of cool on their website that you can sort of sense like, well, do I have too much empathy? Well, here's the questions. I'm going to give them to you so you have them. And maybe you can check for yourself yes or no, because then you turn something that may be unconscious to you, you can turn that conscious. Often that can be at least part of the solution or maybe even the solution, because how do you know? Unless you know what questions to ask yourself. Okay, so the first one, do you spend more time thinking about your partner's feelings than your own? Or, somebody else's feeling. That's one. When you're in an argument, do you focus more on what the other person is saying, or and sort of at the expense of what you wish to say? So that's an indication. Or do you often get so sort of like involved and caught up in feeling somebody else's emotions that it's starting to hurt you and that you start to adopt them as your own feelings? Like somebody is depressed and you spend a day with this person and then you're feeling depressed rather than their emotion being theirs. Yeah, it's not healthy for you. I wouldn't want to feel depressed. And then another indication is when you are leaving an argument of some kind, that you're actually in your mind, you're more consumed about what they were thinking than what you are thinking, And then last, do you spend more time trying to figure out why someone let you down, rather than just going like, well, wait a minute, their reasons may be more important than my feelings, And so I definitely have a few of those tendencies in this list. And so how did I then improve that? What's the mindset hack once you got this? Well, if you answered mostly yes to all of these, then what you need to do is to have this awareness that you have a weakness, which means that your knowing how to handle empathy better needs to be developed. And the way that you do that is going, I need to focus the attention back to my own feelings. It sounds ridiculously simple, but if you're, highly empathic and you're constantly caught in that other person's emotional world rather than your own, then to decide to go back to your own feelings is a lot of repetition and a lot of consciously deciding like, no, I'm not going to think about that person. I'm going to think about, to constantly have to bring that back to yourself. And that may be really tricky when you're in the room with this other person, but most certainly when you walk out of the room and you do self-therapy, which I highly recommend you do it, personal development, developing your own emotional intelligence, which increases your level of happiness or success by 4 times over intelligence, is that you really bring that back so that you start to get healthier relationships with your own emotions and your own needs versus somebody else's. So that is a little bit about emotions or about empathy. And empathy also brings a lot of good things, by the way. You don't want to be void of it, other than that you be mentally ill. But empathy also relates to concepts like compassion and when you want to help someone, concepts like altruism, concepts of understanding what the other person is going through. It's very good for interpersonal relationships as well. So there's a lot of benefits to that. But in this case, it's also, by the way, something that we're born with. When they study babies, we are born with this empathy muscle. So anyway, that's a little bit about empathy, mindset hack for those of you who are trapped into the emotions of other people. If you want to have more information about the emotional intelligence training that is inside my online NLP training and coaching-based training, just look us up or send an email to info@globalnlptraining.com and we'll send you 1 full day of training for free. So let's get this done, and then tomorrow we're going to go into the next element of the interpersonal realm of emotional intelligence.